Welcome to MW Outdoors and the Wilcox family. Today I'm going to show you step by step of how we make our beef and venison jerky. First thing we want to do is take our meat and trim off the fat. So here I've got a round, the top and the bottom here. The one on the right there I've trimmed off the fat already, and I'm going to trim off the one on the left. And then we're going to take our venison and do the same and cut those into strips about 1/8 inch thick. Once we have our meat cut up into our thin strips, we're going to apply a dry base along with the curing salt. We'll let that set for a day in the fridge, and then we're going to come back and we're going to add our wet sauces to give that more flavor. Now the recipe I've come up with is it adds a lot of sweetness to it, sugar, but it also has some spices to it, which gives it a little bit of bite, and we'll go through each one of those spices. It is up to you how much pepper you want, how much sugar you want into it. Also, when you're dehydrating this, that's when you want to add your honey and your extra spices, hot spices, so your peppers and stuff. That will give you the highest impact in terms of how hot and spicy you really want it. So let's start by trimming this fat off. Again, we don't want the fat on there because it just becomes too tough and you can't chew it anyways. So we take that and just trim that off. Any fat that we see here on the edges or in between the different sections of the round, this is a round steak, you want to make sure that that is completely cut out. So there's a good chunk of meat. Get that fat out of there. You'll see that there's a layer of fat through here. We do not want that. We want to get rid of that. Alright, I've got all the fat trimmed off. Now we want to slice these up to thin strips. So, I'll give you an idea. This is the thickness of your steak, your strips. You can make your strips as long and as wide as you want, and that's all depending on how you have butchered your venison or your beef. Now let's give you a close-up of this. We have in the bowl here our venison, and what did we use here? Venison rounds and the chops, which is the back loin, and we sliced those up into 1/8 inch thick slices. And then here we have our beef round, a little tougher, but you can use sirloin, sirloin tip, any of the loins. Now what we want to do is add our curing salt and our seasonings to this. Again, we call this the dry rub or the dry seasonings. Now here we've taken our beef round and we've put it on a pan, laid it out. This is so we can add our dry rub. Here are the items that I use on my dry rubs. We've got our curing salt, chili powder, regular salt if you want to add a little teaspoon maybe to give it a little more salt. I do add a few peppers. I like blackened pepper and black pepper, garlic powder, and onion powder. Now we'll add these on both sides, mix it in, and then we'll stick it in the fridge to set overnight. We will then do the same thing for our venison. One other ingredient that you can add if you want to add a little more sweetness is brown sugar. Now for 1 pound of meat, I will add 2 tablespoons of brown sugar, 1 tablespoon of curing salt, 1 tablespoon of chili powder, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, and 1 teaspoon of onion powder. But I do not measure these out. I just kind of sprinkle them on, and I'll show you that. Now the only ingredient I will measure out is the curing salt. I want to make sure I have the right amount of curing salt on my meat. Alright, we've got about 2 pounds of round here. So we're going to want about 2 tablespoons of this curing salt sprinkled on our meat. And since we're going to do both sides, we just use one there, and we'll probably use about a half one on the other side. As for the chili powder, same thing, whatever you want to add. I like chili powder, so I add quite a bit. Let's sprinkle some blackened pepper on there. And of course, black pepper is even hotter than the blackened pepper. Just sprinkle on what you want. Our onion. garlic. Now if you want extra salt, you can add some extra salt. I'm not going to add that. And I'm going to go out and get brown sugar and sprinkle that in there. Now we're going to repeat this process for the opposite side, and we're going to do this for all our venison meat and get it in the refrigerator. I'm going to add some brown sugar here to sweeten things up. I like it sweet and spicy. You want to add your pepper as you're just putting it in the dehydrator as well. And that even gives it a spicier taste, and add whatever you want and whatever peppers you would like. Alright, now that you got all your spices and stuff on both sides, take your meat, just kind of rub it around, picking up everything that's fallen into the pan, and making sure it gets coated onto the meat, both sides. Your meat's going to feel like sandpaper. It's got all those ingredients all over it. I like a dry rub because more of the flavor of the seasoning goes into the meat than it does in the wet. Alright, we can put that in a bowl, and we can put that in the refrigerator. And then we're going to repeat that process with our venison meat. Here's the first part of our venison meat, and we're just going to repeat the same process we did before. Now we're going to flip this over and repeat this process, and then this will be ready to go in the fridge as well. Here's our beef. Here's our venison. Let that set for a day. And in the meantime, we're going to grab a venison stick. Hope you enjoyed the dry seasoning part. Next, we're going to show you the wet seasoning part. Now that our dry rub has set on our meat overnight, we're now going to add our wet. And here are the ingredients we use. We've got here some lemon juice in a jar, maple syrup that we make. We got some liquid smoke, soy sauce, Worcestershire sauce, sorghums, which is also molasses. Then you see a group here of ingredients, and these are the ingredients I'm going to use to make my own teriyaki sauce. I got Mexican wine, I got ginger, I got garlic, and then brown sugar. And we'll have to add some soy sauce to that. So let's get that mixed up. For the Worcestershire sauce, 2 tablespoons per pound. Molasses, 2 tablespoons per pound. Maple syrup, 2 tablespoons per pound. 1 tablespoon of lemon juice. And then 1/4 cup of soy sauce. Again, these measurements are approximations, and it's all up to your flavor of the jerky that you like. You can add more of one and less of the other. So let's get them mixed up into a bowl and get those on our meat and get them back in the refrigerator. For our jerky, we've got approximately 5 pounds here. We've got 2 pounds of beef and 3 pounds of venison. So we'll make up enough of our wet seasonings for both of those. Then we'll take the meat and the wet solution, we'll put those into a big Ziploc bag, and we'll set those in the refrigerator overnight before we place them into our dehydrator. So we'll go with this first. We know that our basic ingredient was 2 tablespoons per pound of meat. We got 5 pounds, that would be 10 tablespoons. And we'll go to our soy sauce. And soy sauce, just add salt. We know we use 1/4 cup per pound of meat. So that's 1 1/4 cups. We're not going to go with that. This is a 1/4 cup, so we'll probably go with a 1/2 cup, because we're going to add more of the soy sauce in our teriyaki, and that's going to give us plenty of salt. Our lemon juice. For our lemon juice, it's 1 tablespoon per pound, so 5 tablespoons. Our sorghums, it is 2 tablespoons, that'd be 10. I do like molasses and sorghums, so we're just going to put a bunch in there. Now, if you've never cooked with sorghums or molasses, if you add that with say Baby Ray's sweet honey barbecue sauce, and add some of this sorghums and then some mustard, a little bit of garlic. It makes an incredible barbecue sauce. You can see all that on our webpage, which is mwoutdoors.com. We got liquid smoke. For liquid smoke, it's 2 teaspoons per pound, 10 teaspoons, and we're probably going to go half of that. The liquid smoke can get pretty strong. Then we've got our homemade maple syrup, and the maple syrup calls for 2 tablespoons per pound, and we all love real maple syrup. Very sweet, a lot of sugar. Alright, we're going to mix all this up, and we're going to pour that in the meat, and then we're going to mix up our teriyaki solution, and I want to put that in the microwave a little bit to dissolve that sugar and get the ingredients of the ginger and stuff mixed in well. Alright, this is our Ziploc bags that we're going to use, and we're going to put our beef in this one. Then we're going to add part of our solution. And the rest will go in the venison. Now to make our own teriyaki, we're going to use 1 cup of water, brown sugar, soy sauce, honey, garlic, and ginger, and then we will pour that onto our meat. So we're going to start out with 1/2 cup of water, 5 tablespoons of brown sugar, 1/2 cup of soy sauce, a couple of tablespoons of honey, quite a bit of that garlic, minced garlic that we've got, and 1/2 teaspoon of ground ginger. And then 2 tablespoons of the sweet rice wine that we've got. So let's start out with 1/2 cup of water. So then we need our soy sauce, which is a lot more salt. This with minced garlic. Give me a spoon for that. Two tablespoons of the wine. That's sweet cooking seasoning. Ginger. We need a teaspoon of ginger for what we're doing here. And then we need brown sugar. And we should have 10 tablespoons of that. So it depends on how sweet you want your teriyaki. If you want more sweetness in your teriyaki, you can add honey or carob syrup, either one. Alright, just need to heat this up a little bit, get all that sugar dissolved. I see that added a lot more liquid in there, and again that'll get absorbed into the meat and it's not going to create any waste for us. And we just got to get in those refrigerator and clean up. Thank you for joining us on mixing up our ingredients. I hope this video has helped in showing you how we make our jerky. It's really good that way. Of course, we got that final step of getting it in the dehydrator, getting some different peppers on it at that point, and getting honey on it. The honey is key. Putting that honey on in the dehydrator on both sides and making that jerky sticky. Yes, it comes out sticky. The family's going to love it. So we just want to thank you for joining us here on MW Outdoors. Alright, the jerky is set in the refrigerator with the wet seasoning overnight. So first thing we want to do is take a tray, put it in the sink or over the sink, and put our jerky on top of that and let this fluid drain off the meat. We don't want it to drain into the dehydrator. Also, we can do our different peppers that we want. We've got some Cajun pepper, red pepper, jerky meat crazy pepper, and we can add that onto our meat. We want to do that over the sink as well, so we're not getting it on the counter and into our dehydrator. So we're going to empty this content. So we're gonna let that sit and drain just for a few minutes, and then we'll get it into our dehydrator. Here's the ingredients I use. I've got a couple of peppers here. I got a red pepper, I got a Cajun pepper, and I can sprinkle those on top of this. Again, over the sink is better. We don't want it in the dehydrator. Then we're gonna add our honey on this. Our honey, you can use the first time, you can put it on fairly good. It's gonna absorb into the meat. The meat's wet still. But after it's dried for an hour, you want to put this on very sparingly because it will start to run off into your dehydrator, and then you have to clean that up afterwards. So what you want to do is add a small, thin strip of honey after the first coating about 3 times during the dehydrating process. So we take our pepper here. This is our Cajun pepper. Sprinkle it on as much as you want. And then some of our red pepper. And then we're going to add our honey. Now we're going to repeat this for every tray as we fill it up for both our venison and our beef. After this dries for 1 hour, we're going to flip this and repeat the same process. Again, adding whatever pepper you want to really make it hot and spicy, and whatever honey you want. Alright, our jerky's been in the dehydrator for an hour now. So we're going to flip each piece, and we're going to add a layer of thin honey. In the remaining dehydrating process, we're going to add 2 more thin layers of honey before we complete this. Okay, our meat is done. We've unplugged our dehydrator. You can see that the jerky has a glaze on it. That is your honey. Now what you want to do is just let this sit for about 2 hours. And then after it's set for a couple hours and cooled off, then you can put it in Ziploc bags and put it in the refrigerator. I hope this gives you some ideas of what you can do in terms of making your jerky and get you started. Again, the recipe is up to you, the amount of spices, the amount of sugar, whether you want a teriyaki taste or not, that's all up to you. I recommend a dry rub and then the wet seasonings, but you can go with just a dry rub and do a dehydrator or just wet seasonings. So experiment around and enjoy your jerky.